you don't become an author when you publish a book. You actually become an author when your identity changes. And it's important that I talk about this because for me, understanding what authorship was and what it means to be an author, I thought that it was just writing the book itself, just get the page, write the manuscript, and that's it. But there was a one concept that was missing out of everything. So I'm gonna show you why becoming the author inwardly can actually set you up to be the author outwardly. And we're going to be talking about the be do have model. So, the be do have model is actually a model that I use all the time. It's not for me. I actually got it from Marion Golden, Dr. Marion Golden, and it's actually derived from the Bible, in Genesis 1:28. But it's actually a principle that is so impactful for everybody. And I want to talk about the be do have before we even go into what it means to write a book. When people talk about writing a book, they always focus on the actual manuscript. And I made that mistake myself. But there's a whole concept of becoming the author within. That's you having the identity of an author. You see, before any book is written, an author actually must be formed, and that is the truth. That an author must be framed internally before they are framed outwardly. The foundation of authorship is actually identity, and many people actually miss this, which is sad, but it's something that many people do not focus on. They jump the step of identity and go straight into writing, and then at the end of the day, they never launch the book. There's so many personal development skills that are needed, rebranding needed for you before you can even write a book. Writing is not the starting point, it's actually becoming is. And that becoming requires a lot. So today we're going to talk about B, the identity of the author within, where you focus on, you know, your identity as a person before you even write the book. Because if your identity is not aligned with discipline, then it's not aligned with discipline, it's not aligned with clarity, it's not aligned with purpose, your writing will be inconsistent and your message will be very unclear. So, when it comes to writing as an author, the B stage is about internal transformation. There is a B in becoming the author within, where you intentionally rebrand your mindset, rebrand your belief systems, rebrand your habits, rebrand your self perception. And I really want to talk about self perception because sometimes we think that that person just wrote the book because they just wrote the book out of nowhere. No, it didn't. They had to change the way they perceive, the way they see things before they were able to actually write the book. So when you intentionally rebrand yourself to match the level of the author that you are becoming, it's very easy for you to actually become that author. So I'm gonna give you 5 things that you can actually focus on in becoming the author within, but also having the identity in becoming the author within. The first is identity before output. And here it's so important that you understand this because this actually, you cannot sustainably produce what you don't have internally. And you cannot execute something externally if you have not become that person internally. So authorship is not just a task of, oh, I'm going to write the book today and that's it. No, it is transformation. It is the part where identity becomes a core part of who you are and who you're becoming. So when you focus on author within, it's all about who am I becoming as an author? These are questions that you ask yourself. And becoming is you understanding that as I'm an author, or I'm trying to be an author and all of that. What are stages in my life that and things that I have to do to ensure that I be the author that I need to be, right? So you then start evaluating yourself in terms of internal issues, not external issues. And I know this for sure because I remember when I was first writing my first book, for almost 2 weeks, I didn't do anything. Because I lacked self-discipline. But self-discipline is not built when you're writing a book. Self-discipline is built when you're becoming. So you see that a lot of factors in terms of your identity affects your ability to write a book. In fact, when your identity is weak, you will procrastinate, which is what I was doing. You will doubt your message and you will lack consistency. It is true. I've done it, and many of the students that we have worked with at the Public University has gone through this struggle. I'm not even just speaking emotions, I'm speaking truth here. These are facts that when your identity, you don't know your identity as an author, you will procrastinate because you don't know why you're writing the book. It lacks purpose. You doubt your message because it lacks purpose. And you're not consistent. I always say this. The lack of self-discipline is the lack of self-respect. The moment you can't respect yourself enough, no one is going to respect you. So the reason why you are feeling the way is because you don't respect yourself. You lack discipline because you don't respect yourself enough. So now you need to now go inward. And it's okay. If you've identified that, then you want to look inward and say, okay, if I don't respect myself enough, what can I do to respect myself better? Right? So there's the internal work that needs to take place in building your identity. And for you to know that you've gone from a weak identity to a strong identity, there are these three aspects you need to look out for. How you show up with clarity, how you execute with discipline, and how you take ownership of your voice. Those three things will show you or would measure the level of how strong your identity is. And when you focus on your identity before your outcome, then you want to rebrand your self-image. Becoming an author requires a mental shift. It does. I tell you, and I say this to all our students all the time, and all the authors that have gone through the Public University, that writing a book requires a lot of mental stuff. You have to be strong mentally to write a book. It is the truth. It's not a quick, even if I wrote my book in a short period of time, there was a lot. I've built my strength in my mind so strong. Like, it's so strong that I have the capacity. My capacity in writing a book has increased. That's why you see that when I launched my first book, it took longer, 90 days. But when I launched my second book, it was 30 days. And the third, 15 days. Because I've built my capacity mentally to be able to write books. So becoming an author requires a mental shift. It goes from consumer to creator. It goes from passive to intentional. And it goes from uncertain to decisive. So when you start shifting your mindset and your perception, your self-image about what writing is and what becoming an author mentally is, a lot of things start changing. The way you start acting starts changing. The mindset that you carry, it starts changing. A lot of perception changes. There's a lot of change in your life because now you're rebranding yourself. You're not trying to change who you are. You're trying to elevate yourself. You're bringing out who you truly were from the beginning. And if there are bad characters that you're trying to eliminate, this is the opportunity where you actually do that. So you then consciously start rebuilding how you see yourself. And the reason why, and I'll say this, just be as vulnerable as I can. I think one of the reasons why I never launched my book quickly was because I felt like I did not deserve to be heard. But you see, that didn't even have anything to do with books. That had a lot to do with my self-esteem. And my self-esteem was bruised based off the trauma that I was carrying. Now, do you see that the book is not the problem? It's you. When you start digging deep into yourself internally, you start seeing things that, oh, I think this way. That's not good. Oh, I feel this way. That's not good. Oh, I shouldn't be thinking like this. Oh, I should be thinking like this. Oh, I shouldn't do that. Oh, maybe I should do that. Your perception changes. So you have to start consciously asking yourself questions about who you are as an individual, things that trigger you as a person. And I'll give you 2 questions that you can ask yourself when it comes to rebuilding yourself. The first question you want to ask yourself is, Do I see myself as someone with value to share? It's a very deep question to ask yourself, because now and be honest. If you don't, then say no. There's nothing wrong with being honest and saying the truth. If you don't see yourself as a person that has value or can bring value to someone, then you can't write a book. The reason is because writing a book is you bringing value to people. And if you can't see value in what you're seeing, nobody else can see value in what you're doing. And that's the truth. So I remember when I was writing my third book, I really struggled a lot mentally with, am I deserving? Do I have the capacity to teach these people these tools? And then I said, yes, I do. Because I've implemented them, and not only on myself, but many of our students have done it, and you can see results. The result speaks for itself. So it works. This is actually true. And when we interviewed some of our students, they said it, yeah. I did not feel like I was worthy enough to write a book. And it's okay. And then we show you, okay, this is what you're doing, this is how you're going through it. Okay, let's take a pause on that. Do you see yourself as someone with value to share? And now, if you don't, okay, then this is a you problem. This is not a book. This is not a framework problem. This is a you problem. And now you need to do some rebranding internally. You need to start changing some things. What causes that? Why do you think that way? This is the reason why I think that in the future we're going to launch something before the book. It's something, and it's going to be a lot about healing, transformation, because I realize that there's a lot of internal work that people are pushing aside. They want to write the book, but they're not focusing on that work. And you have to focus on that work. You can't just get up and just write a book because you want to write a book. No. You have to ask yourself that question. Then the other question you want to ask is, do I believe my voice matters? It's a very simple question, but it's a very deep question. And be truthful. Answer this question truthfully. Do I believe my voice matters? For many years, I believed that my voice didn't matter. Many years, I believed my voice didn't matter. And one day I took a chance with myself. I went from invisible to an author of 3 books. And I knew, oh, this is just the beginning of influence. This is the beginning of impact. I'm not after everybody. I'm not meant to be for everybody. I'm meant for a specific few. When your mind starts changing, you stop chasing. Things come to you. Why? Because you're not for everyone. And not everyone is for you. And once I started learning that, I realized my voice is not for everybody. My voice is for a selected few. So if they if they reject my voice, well, they're not the right audience. It's as simple as that. That does not. I don't put the value of my voice down based off your response. No. If you do not respond the way I want you to respond, then you're not the right person to hear it. Because I've realized that my voice matters. And once you start thinking that way, if people buy a book or don't buy a book, that's their problem. It's not is my book valuable enough? That's why people are not buying it. Or it's a matter of, maybe I'm not bringing it to the right market. Because I know my book has value. So I need to find people that need this book. You see how perspective changes? Even as an author, your mind starts changing. But this has to be done internally. Another thing you have to start doing is that you have to start thinking like an author. Before you even write the book, you have to start thinking like author. Author process life, differently. You're processing life differently. As an author, we observe deeply. Everything that we go through, we observe it. We extract lessons from experiences. We organize thoughts into structures, and we communicate with purpose. That's one of the mindset of an author. But you have to start thinking like that. You have to start first with observing deeply. Every situation you go through, how do you observe it? Do you observe it or do you just brush it off? Because there can be a story in that situation. Then, if you observe perfectly, then you want to ask yourself, can I actually get a lesson out of my experience in life? You see, people write memoirs. What is a memoir? Their experiences. That's what it is. It's a life experience. It legit is a life experience. That's what a memoir is. or they write a bibliography of their book, or somebody write a storybook out of the story from their life. It's life experience. So that means experiences are gold. Whether it's good or bad, they're gold. And once you start seeing experiences as gold, your perspective changes. You stop complaining about why you went through it and say, well, I went through it and I'm here, so I can convert that into lessons to teach people not to make the same mistakes I made. And then you can start also with organizing your thoughts into structure. Okay, or at this age I went through this, at this age I went through this. So maybe I can write maybe 4 stories regarding this. So maybe one book, you can even start a sequel where you're doing a series of books. So number 1 is your first stage, your childhood. That can be a book about your childhood, and you're talking about your childhood and the experiences of your childhood. And then now you now talk about your teenage years, and then you now talk about your adult years, whatever it is. You start thinking of things in structure, like this way and this way and then this way. And then when you start doing that, you start communicating purpose. Even your conversation, before you even write the book, your conversations that you have with people is backed by purpose. It's not, you don't just speak anyhow. You don't just speak when everyone is talking. No. Every word that comes out of your mouth is carried with so much depth and wisdom. So you start thinking like an author, where you know that you're not just writing, you are interpreting life for others. So that's one thing. Another thing is that for you to be, which is becoming the identity of an author within, is internal work becomes external result for you. Whereby your internal work, you start working on your internal works. That's your mindset development, your emotional discipline, your clarity of thoughts, your self-awareness. A lot of things start changing for you. The way you speak, the way you communicate, a lot of internal work starts building, because you know that those internal work will come before external results. So you start working on your mindset. How do I think about this? What makes me think this way? You start developing your mindset. You start building your emotional discipline. Because the truth is, discipline is not backed by emotions. It's backed by consistency. So if there are days where your emotions will fluctuate, one day you feel like this video, I did not want to record it, but I had to, because I made a commitment that I'm going to record every Friday. I'm going to post every Friday. So because I value and respect myself enough, I'm disciplined enough to get it out there. And because of that conviction, even if I feel like recording or I don't feel like recording, I show up regardless. You start working on that. The reason why you start building this is because when you start writing, there are days where you don't feel like writing. I will be honest with you. There are going to be many days where you don't feel like writing a book. Truth. Any author here can tell the truth. If I put in the comment section, if you know what I'm saying is true, there are many times you don't feel like it, but you got to show up anyways. And that is built internally. Then clarity of thought, you start learning how to clarify your thought process. The way I speak now is different from the way I was speaking earlier. If you go to our earlier videos, you can see the difference in the way I speak. It's changed a lot. So I've learned to clear my thought. I don't write scripts. People always say, are your videos organic? Yes, they are. I just put highlights of what I want to talk about, maybe like a pointer, and that's it. All of this comes from my mind because I've learned the act of clarifying my thoughts. And the more you start learning, the best way to start clarifying your thoughts is by actually taking a moment to pause inward, think about what you're saying, and then think about the outcome. That is the benefit that they would get from what you're saying. If there's no benefit, don't say it. So pausing is one of the ways of clarifying your thoughts. When someone is asking you a question, you can build this in communications and conversations with people. When you're having a conversation with someone, hear what they're saying, and the first thing you ask yourself is, what I want to give them, can it impact them? If it can't, don't say it. If they're asking you a question, then always think back, take a moment, pause, think about the question. And you can tell them, give me a moment. If they say, oh, what is your favorite book? My favorite book. I don't think I've ever really actually thought about that. if I'm to think of my favorite book, I'll think of something that has impacted me more. And I think one book that impacted me more was The Atomic Habits. Do you see how I responded? I did not think about that. But I actually asked myself a question. What is one book that has impacted my life? If it has impacted my life, then it's important. Excuse me. So you see how I do that. So yeah, the more you write book, the more you learn to clarify your thought. But you need to learn and build this before you actually write your book, because that's writing requires clarity, right? So, and then self-awareness. Here you're building your awareness, how to, about yourself. Like I always say, lack of self-discipline is lack of self-respect. So you start evaluating who you are as an individual. It's because without this, writing will become scattered and shallow, and that's the truth. And with this internal work, your writing will become powerful and transformational. So that's what the aim is. The aim of you writing a book is not just to get a book out there, it's to impact people with it. The last thing I would say is that there is a responsibility of identity, and identity has a lot of responsibility before you actually write the book. We're talking about all the work you can do within, right? The author within, focusing on the author inside and using the BDA framework. We've been talking about B, which is becoming. And it is so important for us to know that there is so much value in identity. Because when you accept the identity of an author, you take responsibility for your growth, you commit to consistency, and the most important thing is that you honor your message. And there's no more beautiful thing than that, because identity creates accountability. So, there are a few things I will ask you to do before you finish this video to help you implement everything I've been teaching you. The first thing is, I want you to write a personal author identity statement, whereby you write a statement about who you are as an author. Even though you've not written a book yet, it's fine. Just write it. And then I want you to start journaling your thoughts daily. So maybe just a little note there. Okay, today I feel this. This will help you to have clarity in thoughts. I want you to also replace limiting beliefs with intentional affirmations. In fact, in the Ultimate 3 platform that we have, there's something we called affirmations for writing, to help you say some things about yourself as an individual. And even when you read the book, you can see some few things that were said out there. But we also even have a reflection journal. It's funny, but we do. And the reason why I created a reflection journal for that book was so that the questions that we're asking, you can actually write them. And when you write them, you're implementing what you've learned, right? So it's very important for you to do this. And then I want you to study authors that you admire and how they think. Even if it's just one author, look at you admire the work. How are they like? For me, mine was Miles Morone, Dr. Miles Morone. I studied him. I read his content. And man, I have so many of his books on my bookshelf. I watched his YouTube channel. I was immersed in that man's content. And when I studied him, I saw a lot of the way he acts, the way he speaks. And because of that, I transformed myself. So I did not just write these 3 books overnight. I did a lot of rebranding work for a year plus before I even thought of writing the book. So my urge for you today is for you to focus on the becoming, that is the identity of who you are as an author within. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.